I feel like there's a deeper reason why, people of color and specifically the Black community have been relentlessly persecuted. Like, I mean, just the things that happened during slavery alone, like, were insane. But I don't know, the more I learn about Black history and the ways that, people who literally worked in the government, like the CIA, all these different people in power were trying to ruin the Black community. And it makes me think, dude, I feel like, is there something more going on here than just racism? Because it's like, come on, you're telling me you're doing all of this stuff just because you don't like someone's skin color? I feel like, I have this theory that, like, what if Black people have some type of superpower? Like, what if they have, I don't know, if they're just born with something very valuable that we don't really know about, but maybe, like I said, these rich people and these people in power, maybe they figured it out.
So it's a vibrational thing. It's melanin. Melanin is literally worth more than gold. Having melanin, this layer, this epidermis, this layer of skin protects you from the sun. We are people of planet Earth. We are the aboriginal inhabitants of planet Earth. Literally. There was a man by the name of Albert Perry, and he's from South Carolina in America, and he has the oldest DNA in the world. His DNA is said to be over 300,000 years old, and he's from America. So older than the Lucy bones, older than the other woman's bones. I can't think of her name. That was found in South America. And then, of course, Henrietta Lacks. She has immortal cells that literally was on display as art in a museum. Another Black American woman. I'm putting emphasis on Black American because y'all already know all of the theories of where we come from, when literally melanin rich people were all over the globe at one point. And our pineal glands are open. It's not calcified like other people. We have different digestive systems. That's why the food pyramid doesn't necessarily work with us. Like, we have to eat different. And I would advise everyone to find out what your blood type is and eat according to your blood type. Okay? Give your cells what they need, but also the melanin. And this is why they try to demonize watermelon, because watermelon is actually amazing and immaculate for people with melanin. Like, hello. But we are vibrational beings. Everything around you is moving. We are rhythmically inclined. This is why we created every single genre of music, Black Americans. And this is why we can dance and we have a certain type of rhythm to us, because we are in tune with the vibrational frequency of this physical plane. They clone Tyrone ain't fake. They literally pump things in our neighborhoods. They give us certain types of food to lower our vibrational field. Because when you're vibrating on a certain frequency, it also helps you to tap into the spiritual realm. And you could access different dimensions. We going a little too far, a little too deep. And also, I think that the clear folk is just afraid of us being the superpower that we have always been. No matter what conditions we live in, we always thrive. No matter what foods, no matter what diseases, whatever you pump into the community, we're still producing by the droves. They've created in vitro and all of that for a particular group of people, because they didn't realize that giving all of the chemicals and everything to us, it affected them as well, but on a grand scale. Clock that motherfucking T, bitch. They need some. We ain't gonna go into that. We ain't gonna go all the way into that. Okay? But it's a spiritual thing. It's a light. Someone said that it's like we're like the X-Men. Like the X-Men theory. How X-Men are like mutants and everybody ostracizes them and thinks that they're weird and they're forced to live like, off on an island on their own. But they always show up to help everybody. Everybody's always relying on them to save the day while simultaneously treating them like shit. That is the plight of a Black American person. And we literally keep industries alive. We have like $1.9 trillion in spending power in this country. We get all of the negative stigmas, even though people are inflicting those things on us. Everybody's trying to destiny swap, and I'm specifically talking about Black Americans. Everybody's trying to destiny swap with us because we're special. There's like over 50,000 patents of things that Black Americans invented that you use every single day that you don't even realize you're using. Everyone is breathing in our culture because we are the very essence of the world. It just is what it is. This is long, but yeah, we are special. A lot of us are psychic without even knowing, extremely intuitive. I have prophetic dreams. My grandma has had prophetic dreams. Y'all say we don't have no culture. We have a lot of different things that we do that is not breathed in and out every single day because we don't talk about it outwardly. But yeah, it's a superpower. And if we were to cut all of the vices and probably unplug from the devices, ain't no fucking telling who we would be. Spread love is the Brooklyn way.
Enhances consciousness. So you definitely, yeah, that's really, really recent, late breaking kind of research that's coming into the forefront. But it will do, again, what we don't understand, and obviously, as you know, it's been so suppressed, and probably Billy's looked into this, but melanin is a very powerful structural, basically an energy generator, right? So like the stronger the melanin production in your body, the more quote unquote spiritually inclined and in tuned you are. So like when you use melanotan 1 in like a surgically precise dose, not only will it improve your skin quality.
Melanin pigment, right, is so unbelievable, George. They use it in computer chips now because it has an ability to transduce electrical energy. Can you imagine this? It has this incredible ability to hold on to and transduce and manipulate electrons, electronic energy, and photons, photonic energy. It's a fascinating molecule.
Melanin is the chemical key to life. There is nothing else to study in science but melanin. We call it chemi, which means black. The people who study melanin particles call what they're studying, the science is called chemistry. What you call chemistry, the study of melanin particles that go around in an orbit, and we call them electrons, protons, solitons. Those are melanin particles. That's why we call it chemistry. And the country you come from is called Kemet, which some people call Egypt. There's nothing else to study but melanin. And if you study chemistry or heard of chemistry and haven't heard the word melanin, you have just been studying social science.
Richard King reveals that the core of the human brain is the locus coeruleus, which is a structure that is black because it contains large amounts of neuromelanin, which is essential for its operation. 2, black infants sit, crawl, and walk sooner than whites. 3, Carol Barnes notes that human mental processes are controlled by melanin, that same chemical which gives blacks their superior physical and mental abilities. 4, some scientists have revealed that most whites are unable to produce melanin because their pineal glands are often calcified or non-functioning. Pineal calcification rates with Africans are 5 to 15%, Asians 15 to 25%, and Europeans 60 to 80%. This is the chemical basis for the cultural differences between blacks and whites. And 5, melanin endows blacks with greater mental, physical, and spiritual abilities, something which cannot be measured based on Eurocentric standards. End quote. Let that sink in. Melanin endows black people with greater mental, physical, and spiritual abilities.
Neuromelanin is present in all mammalian creatures. It is most highly concentrated in human beings. In the human brainstem, these obviously become much more evolved and highly complex. The folding surface of the brain, not only the neocortex, but the emerging structures of the triune brain have a surface that is covered with the gray of neuromelanin. It is also in our internal organ systems, not only the higher central nervous system, that we find melanin on the surface. The skin of all of our internal organs is dark precisely because of their melanin content. Neuromelanin simply forms the bioluminescent chemical substrate or template in the brainstem, ventricles, and higher cerebral structures. This inner brain is structured with the previously mentioned 4 chambers or ventricles. The highest or uppermost are under the gray neuromelanin-rich cortex and are the lateral 2 ventricles. They are under the cerebral hemispheres. CSF, or cerebrospinal fluid, is produced by the 3rd and 4th ventricles of the brain. The fourth ventricle is actually the lowest of the four and closest to the spinal cord. The CSF, or cerebrospinal fluid, flows through these spaces, through the spinal canal and the spinal cord, bathing and protecting and nourishing them with a subtle essence. The pineal gland is light sensitive. It is attached very loosely to the posterior end of the root of the third ventricle, about the size of a pea. It is cone-shaped and gray to red-gray in color. It points upward and out of the body. It is known to convert central nervous system signals into endocrine system activity and secrete subtle and powerful hormones, many of which are known to have visionary or hallucinogenic capacities. DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, is only one of these. The other center of vast importance is the pituitary gland, often referred to as the master gland. It secretes a host of endocrine hormones that profoundly affect the organ systems, sexuality, growth hormones, endorphins, prolactin, TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone, and numerous other hormones and endocrine glands. All the glands work together and still have their unique individual functions. The pituitary gland is about the size of a pea. It points downward and into the body. It is divided into an anterior and posterior lobe. These two lobes rest at the base of the brain in a small bony cavity and are attached to the brain itself by a stalk. The pituitary gland is believed to receive a subtle stimulation that in turn quietly stimulates the pineal gland. The pineal gland and the pituitary gland begin to vibrate together, creating a kind of living magnetic field of resonance, which is experienced as a pulsating light in the head. The extraordinarily sensitive pineal gland, bathed in CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, is constantly moving in the waves of this inner sea. It picks up the minutest vibrations that move through the body, the brain, and the brain core. These waves and vibrations, like the waves and vibrations of information fields around us, carry energy and intelligence.
You're old, like really, really old. We didn't even know how old you were, but now we know, and we're gonna tell everyone. Trace here for D News, and using DNA from a man in South Carolina named Albert Perry, scientists have pushed back the age of humans by almost 140,000 years. That's huge. Prior to this discovery, the fossil record had shown humans began to appear around 200,000 years ago. But this part of humanity split off from that group, and they evolved alongside. We are way older than we thought. We found this out through the National Geographic Genographic Project, which was set up to find out when and where humanity originated. When researchers at the NGGP peeked into this dude's DNA, they were shocked. There were no markers that matched any of the 500,000 samples that they had on file. Luckily, Perry had a rare mutation on his Y chromosome, and using a gene sequencer and a giant database of DNA, scientists finally found an ancestor in the Mbo, living in a tiny area of western Cameroon in sub-Saharan Africa. If you think of the Y chromosome like a family tree, with the oldest members at the bottom of the trunk, this man was on a whole nother tree from everyone else. And this tree is like 70% taller than any of the other trees.
Mitochondrial Eve often gets all of the attention, but Y chromosome Adam is where things get really interesting. So let's talk about Albert Perry. He was born into slavery in South Carolina around 1820, and it wasn't until more recently, when someone was trying to uncover the history of their family history, that we realized something really, really interesting here. So remember, mitochondrial Eve, we know that this person existed sometime around 150,000 years ago. We come to that conclusion by taking all genome samples and tracking back that mtDNA to see where that common ancestor was, the mother that we can all trace our lineage to. You can do something similar with Y-DNA as well. Enter Albert Perry. Prior to this DNA being tested, the Y chromosome Adam was thought to be somewhere around 140, 150,000 years ago. Every male, you could track that Y chromosome common ancestor back around 150,000 years ago. Pretty similar to mitochondrial Eve, until this happened. And then we got a new branch, and that Y chromosome Adam was pushed back in time to account for everybody, because this genetic profile had not been discovered and was not included over here. Because the Y chromosome haplotype, the one we thought was the oldest one, had previously been called A0, this new one was called A00, and further research actually found some other people with that same haplotype residing in Cameroon. Something else important to say is that initially they found that this ancestor likely lived between 237 and 581,000 years ago, which is substantial. That's really far back. That's more than twice as far back as we had previously thought with that 140,000 estimate. Another more recent paper wanted to look more into that, and their conclusion was that the last common ancestor lived more closely to around 208,000 years ago. But that's the thing with mitochondrial Eve, Y chromosome atom. We don't often talk about that, but it is a fluid thing. It's not static. It's not always going to be the same. For example, like if these groups, they were lost, they no longer existed, the Y chromosome atom would move up again. If we found another group that had even more ancient haplotypes, it could move back. The initial comment said Albert Perry breaks the model, but in reality, this strongly supports our current understanding of evolution, and that is that in Africa, humans were widespread across the continent. And over time, as the climate would ebb and flow, humans would come together, come apart, come back together, and that diversity likely played a role in why we were so successful once we left Africa and outcompeted the other human species like Neanderthals, Denisovans, Floresiensis, and the ones we don't even know about.
Henrietta Lacks was a sister who lived in Baltimore and who had cervical cancer, and ultimately died of cervical cancer. And the doctors harvested some of her cells, and what they discovered in performing tests on her cells were that her cells were immune to specific diseases, specific cancers. So there was a quality in her cells that was resistant to disease. And they began to develop a host of vaccines and treatment modalities using the cells of this black woman, and they never told her family that they had harvested her cells, that they had made millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars.
Henrietta Lacks' own DNA and her cells are all over the world right now because they were so prolific, they just kept on multiplying. That was an indication of the fact that as African peoples, we hold the genetics for eternal youth.
Melanin absorbs light, EMF, and sound, then converts that into biological energy, which is basically it taking all of those things and then turning it into fuel for the body. And scientists actually discovered that melanin can generate electric current from light with no wires. So like a melanated being standing out in the sun literally charges them up like a battery. Like quite literally having melanin is like being a battery. And like it can conduct electricity. It is used in supercomputing. It's found deep in the brain, in the parts of the brain where it's, you know, dealing with awareness and consciousness and like your reality. And so I'm just like thinking all of these things that are tied to melanin, and it just seems like this magical thing. Like even in Egypt, they thought of it as some magical black substance. You know what I mean? They thought of it as a divine, magical thing. And so I'm thinking maybe, you know, some other people had that awareness as well and knew about that. And that's why melanated beings were treated as such throughout history. Like maybe the knowledge that's hidden within, you know, the Vatican, let's say, maybe there's some knowledge about melanin and what it really is and what it really does and what it truly means. And that's why melanated beings were not treated correctly throughout all of history. Because like they had some knowing about what it truly meant. It just seems like it's magical. Like I'm going to look more into it, but it genuinely seems like melanin is magic. I'm just saying. Melanin is paramagnetic, which basically means it reacts to magnetic forces. And that immediately made me think of the Egyptians. Because I understand, like, you know, melanin conducts electricity. Melanin is this superconductor pretty much. And so that makes sense to me why it would react with magnetic forces. And then I thought about the earth has literally a magnetic field. So is that how the Egyptians had all the knowledge about Earth's alignment and other planetary alignments? Like, is that where the knowledge actually came from? And like, that's how they had knowledge of true north as well. It was literally the melanin, like that was the compass, that was the machine, that was the intelligence. Like, that's where they got the intelligence from. It was quite literally just the melanin, and that's how they were able to build everything by also using frequencies and humming and vibrations and all of those things as well. Like, I just feel like that goes hand in hand, but the melanin was like how they received that information. Do you see what I mean? And I feel like all of that information is what got hidden away. And like, that is not out for the public to understand and to know, because technically they used their melanin as a tool, as a machine. Like, maybe they used an ankh or had some other form of ancient technology in order to, you know, actually get whatever the job was done. But I feel like the melanin was like how they were getting the information, and it was part of how they were getting things done, and like had the knowledge of how to align things. Like, I just think that's really interesting. Melanin also responds to sound frequencies. It helps translate sounds into energy, which makes me think that's why melanated people feel music on such a deep physical, emotional, and spiritual level, because quite literally, as a melanated being, you are feeling the music entirely throughout your whole body. Like, and also melanated beings are more sensitive to rhythmic patterns and vibrational healing. So if that's being said, like, a sound bath technically would be really good for a melanated being, but that makes me wonder as well, like, when people are saying like frequencies of music matters and like what people are saying matters because it has an effect, that could actually be true. Because not only does the brain, you know, activate in melanin rich areas if it is experiencing chanting or drums or just music in general, but like when people are turning the frequencies to lower frequencies that are not right or saying horrible things in the song, it quite literally is being felt all throughout the melanated being. And so like, that makes me wonder if the music that is put out is specifically a way to affect melanated beings, because to know that sounds are literally affecting melanated beings is to know that that can literally be then manipulated for some reason, like, so through the music or through whatever they do. And like, that's why melanated people are feeling the music so deeply, and it's like spiritual. It's like a whole experience, because quite literally your melanin is taking those sounds from the music, from whatever, and it's turning it into energy. And then that energy is whatever that music was meant to make you feel. You see what I'm saying? So it seems like that's intentional. It seems like they know that the melanin is responding to the music directly, and that's how they end up manipulating the music. You know what I'm saying?
Skin cancers occur at different rates in different racial ethnic groups in America. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention published data on cancer rates, including that of skin cancer. They break the data down into 6 groups. The cancer rates for white, non-Hispanic Americans, for white Hispanic Americans, for Hispanic Americans, for Black Americans, for American Indians and Alaska Native Americans, and for Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Americans. The skin cancer rate for white, non-Hispanic Americans far outpaces the skin cancer rate for any other group. It's 5 times higher than the rate for American Indians and for Alaska Native Americans. It's 6 times higher than the rate for white Hispanic Americans and for Hispanic Americans. It's 21 times higher than the rate for Asian Americans and for Pacific Islander Americans. And it's a whopping 28 times higher than the rate for Black Americans.
They're always studying and updating information on melanin. That's how you control behaviors. That's what you call the nucleus of the cell. Every cell has a brain, and the brain of the cells in your body is melanin. So to study melanin is to study biology. But they never mention the word melanin in a biology class because they don't want to get you aware of what's really going on. Then we study melanin particles called electrons and protons and solitons and neutrons. We study we start calling that chemi after the word chemet. And you study melanin particles, and we call that chemistry. But they're never going to tell you they're studying melanin, because you may get wise to the game and know that the only thing there is to study is you on this planet. All devices are caused by the ability of melanin to create different kind of energy force fields, as people like to say today. It causes energy to spin to the left and to the right, which we call DL and L-phenylalanine and L-glutamine. We give it the names based on spinning. We do that a lot in chemistry. We name things after how it spins, or we name things after the color. Riboflavins, rutins, phytoflavonoids. We give things names by color. We give things names by numbers. Vitamin B1, vitamin B2, vitamin B3. And we give things numbers by Latin names. Omega, beta, omega-3, those are Latin names. Then we give substances. All we do is rename the same thing, but switch the way in which we name it. One time we name it by letters, the next time we name it by colors, the next time we name it by numbers, and then you sit there totally behooved at what's going on, and all we're doing is talk about you, black. But the idea is to keep you totally confused and to some way manipulate your melanin.